Hey gang, East Coast Lumberjack here, and I'm putting up an order of handles for a buddy of mine in St. Stephen. And he ordered 3 yellow birch. If you remember back a while ago, I talked about qualities, properties of wood, and when we looked at them, yellow birch was right up there, actually a little bit better than white ash. Hickory was pretty tough to beat for everything, elasticity, strength, flexibility, the whole 9 yards. And then the ash was, I thought, would be second. It's actually about third. Yellow birch was second if you look at the properties right across the board in everything. Shearing strength and the whole 9 yards. Anyways, I did a video back. Well, I'll just go through my videos, go back and look at the ones where it talks about the best handle wood. So anyways, I did get a few pieces of yellow birch and put them out in the garage with the rest of my bolts and dried them. And Dan said he wanted to try some yellow birch handles. So I turned 3 of these handles here are yellow birch. And I finished a few of them. I'll show them to you. These are the ones I have done right now. So here's a yellow birch double bitter cruiser handle. And it's pretty straight ahead, pretty standard. This one here is a straight handle. So this is built for a single bitted axe, but it's straight. You can see it's just as straight as a die. So nice handle. I actually really like this one. This here is probably what people would use for a splitting maul or a wedge banger or whatever. So that's a straight handle. I'm not sure what he's putting these on. And then you got one of these, of course, an American felling axe, and it's got the really neat grip down here. It actually fits your hand pretty nice. The American felling axe handles are pretty sweet. And it's ash. It's a tougher piece of ash. I was surprised. It's got a lot of modeling, and it's almost like a bird's eye effect in this piece of ash. But it'll be really pretty when he finishes it up. And then, of course, we got this one. This is yellow birch. So he's got yellow birch and ash. And this here is, of course, what we call an Adirondack handle. So it's got a double bit on one end, but it's got basically a palm swell on the other. So you can actually swing it this way. You can turn it around and use it as a straight handle, but to get the good grip on it, you want to use it this way here. And this is out of yellow birch, and man, I'll tell you, my new favorite wood. I can't believe it. Finishing this up is just gorgeous to do, and it's nice and smooth right off the bat. So like I said, I'm going to do my next video was supposed to be on what's better, a thick handle or a big handle or a small handle, a thinner handle. And I will do that the next time. But what I want to do now, because I have a few more of these on the bench to do, I want to show you how smoothly and slick this works to actually finish a yellow birch handle. So I've got 4 done, got a few left to go. I got a couple of hatchet handles here for them, but I've got this one here. This is a yellow birch cruiser handle. So you can see the grain is going nice on this here, up and down. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 grains running through it. There's a little bit of a wobble here. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4 grains right along here. It looks like it might actually be run out, but if you look at it, the grain is a little bit and of course it's yellow birch. Okay, so it's a little bit wavy, so that it comes out there and it goes back in. So, but man, pretty. And the smell of it, I think what I like the most about yellow birch is the smell when I'm finishing it. So I'm going to put this in, and I'm going to show you finishing a handle. So this is an 8-sided finish that comes off of my bandsaw. Okay, this is another one of those what we call American felling axe. It's got the really neat knob on the end of it here, palm swell. So that's what the 8-sided finish looks like, and then of course I just finish it with the tools I use. So I'm going to show you finishing this yellow birch handle. Now, one thing about yellow birch is diffuse porous. It's not ring porous. And as we know, elms, oaks, hickories, and ash are all ring porous. So what happens when you're actually spoke shaving them, if you're going the wrong way against the grain, it'll catch and it'll gouge your handle wood. Not so with diffuse porous wood. That's another reason why I really like it. The smell, the aromatic smell when I'm finishing this is one thing, but then the other is the how smooth it actually works here with my spoke shave. So talk about smooth like that right off the bat. So and it's a beautiful smooth finish. So whoop, not quite tight enough in the bench. So usually I start up at the throat or the neck of the handle. Well, I guess you can't see that. Let me put that down just a smidgen so you can. There we go. So I start right here at the neck, and I'll just smooth that over because of course it's 8-sided. And then I do the length of the handle, so I get it all on the same plane. So it's nice and smooth and straight. Okay, and then I come down this far side. And basically what I'm doing is just, my handles are fairly close to what I want them to be when they come off the bandsaw. So all I'm really doing is just smoothing those corners off. And you learn that over the years. I used to do them a little bit rougher on the bandsaw, and then it would take me a lot longer to finish them. So now if I get them pretty close to where I want them on the bandsaw, it just takes a little bit of time. Now there, it actually is gouging there a little bit going against the grain. So I'm going to flip around. Oh, that one's got a little bit of problem both ways. Interesting. The last one was really smooth in both directions. Okay, so that's different. Because the other one, it didn't matter which way I did it. It was fine both ways. So if I get a little bit of gouging here, I'll switch over from the spoke shave, and I go to my Stanley wood rasp. And what I call it, it's a shear form, is what they call it, a shear form tool. And Stanley makes it, so then what I'll do is I'll do the palm swell. And same thing, I'm just basically rounding off those edges and smoothing them over. Now, when you're doing your palm swell, what you want to notice on the palm swell, you want to check the top and the bottom to make sure they're both shaped the same way. And I know sometimes when I'm in a hurry, my palm swells aren't quite as straight as what they should be. I'm trying to get handles out the door, and I'm not looking at that, but I've changed a little bit of my technique just lately. I'm going to talk to you about that. So I'll do basically one flat side and then the other. So there, I've rounded off the palm swell. So it's smooth the whole way around. And then what I'll do is I'll put my bevel on it. Okay, so I don't leave that sharp edge on there. I always put a bevel on the end of my handles. Another thing that it's pretty peculiar to the East Coast Lumberjack. So just like that, I'm ready to go to my final stage. And I'm going to do this along this side because remember I had a little bit of, it was chinking both ways. I get a little bit of gouging in the wood. So I'm just going to use a shear form to bring that around. And then what I'll do is I'll look up the outsides of the handle. And I see it's nice and straight here. When I look at this side, there's a little bit of a rise right here. And I'll take the shear form and I'll go lengthwise. So you use the whole straight surface of the shear form, and that'll take, if you get a little wobble in it, it'll take that out really slick for you. So that's another reason I like this shear form. I can just go along the edge of the handle like this, that whole, and whatever high point there is, this tool will find it and take it out. So then I flop over to my Nicholson. Love Nicholson files. It's a Nicholson wood rasp. And I start at the bottom, down to palm swell, and I round it around. So it's nice and smooth. Now again, your fingers and your hands are the best way to test how your handle is turning out. It'll feel imperfections a lot faster than your eyes can find them, I find. Maybe that just comes from handling, I don't know, a couple thousand handles, I don't know. So now what I'm doing is just taking out any of the rough spots, because on the bandsaw I made it pretty straight, taking my time to make sure it's pretty straight in the right shape. Then I just take the edges off, and now I'm just smoothing out whatever rough spots there were from the tools I used. So again, I'm just going over them nice and smooth. You gotta love the smell of this yellow birch. Yellow birch actually smells like wintergreen. I'm not sure if you know that or not, but we always taught that in college when we were teaching silvics and tree species dendrology. We would talk about you know, different characteristics of telling. I mean, yellow birch is it's pretty easy to tell because of course it's yellow bark, flaky bark, similar to white and gray birch. But of course the color is very different. But sometimes you will get yellow birch bark that's actually, it'll fool you. It actually looks like maple sometimes. It'll get so crusty and it's just not smooth and around. It actually has got a lot of partitions within the bark, and it's pretty tough to tell sometimes. That's on older yellow birch. But we always tell them, take a twig, crunch it up or chew on it. You get that wintergreen smell, and it's really nice. It's good taste. And now I get it when I'm finishing the handle, so that's kind of nice. So again, just smoothing out the rough spots in the handles, all we're doing now. See that? Where that gouged right there, it's taking a little bit more. The only drawback I find with yellow birch is you got to clean your tools a lot more frequently. So I've got one of those little wire brushes, handy as a pocket in a shirt. And I use that to clean the wood out of my rasp. So again, we're almost halfway there already. Then I finish up around the neck. Flop over. Start coming down the far side. And I'm rolling that edge right, the top right over into the edge. There. Now, when I run my hand up along there, there's a high spot right there and I can feel it. So I'll just go back and smooth that out. Sometimes if it's a big spot, you might have to go back to your wood rasp, your shear form, Stanley one. But if it's not that big, you'll be fine. If you feel a little bit wobble like that, the other thing you can do is go back to your shear form and bring it along straight like this. Just like that, straight as a die. So that's why I like that tool. Okay, so that's that done. Now I'll flop it over, it'll get even quicker this side. There. So, again, a little bit of, it looks like run out, but then you see it goes back in, back out, back in. So it actually is just where there was a little bit of a wobble in the wood. There must have been internal knots on this tree. And of course the wood grew around those and smoothed out, because on the outside, this log looked perfectly straight. So it's starting to peel back on me right there, so I'll just flop my spoke shave around. And I have to keep flopping back and forth. Well, shoot, that's too bad, because that was one of the reasons on the last handle. It didn't matter which way I went on the grain, it just was smooth the whole time. It was gorgeous. So we're gonna smooth this out. Same thing, taking all the little jig marks from my bandsaw out of the smooth part, as you can see where it's. After you use your bandsaw bit, you get a few bends in them. Like today, the bandsaw stopped right up in one of my cuts I was making, and of course, not good for your belt on the bandsaw. But the other thing it'll do is it'll sometimes bend your blade. Then you get this little, every time it goes around, whoop, 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 whoop. So when you're cutting a line, it goes whoop, 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 and you get those little ridges in your work. So all I'm doing right now is just basically taking those out. Okay, so that's about it for that. We'll go to the shear form. I almost have a handle. And again, remember, I'm gonna, once I round it here, I'm gonna check for uniformity of that knob. Here, just round it off here a little bit. That's pretty darn good. Which is good. It'll be a lot faster. I'll go around and put my bevel on it. My signature bevel. And check it for uniformity, pretty good. So now I'm just gonna, it's not bad, it looks like it's a little bit off right here, and of course it's off right here because I couldn't use my spoke shave on it, because it was gouging, didn't matter which way it went. This one's a little bit more forgiving because of course your teeth are only, you know, a millimeter thick, a millimeter deep. That's all they stick up, so that's all they can gouge out, which is kind of nice. So we're just about set to finish. And I'll show you my last little trick I've put into my handle making just recently. So again, you're just smoothing out all those gouge marks. Man, the pattern on even the grain on this is beautiful. He's gonna love this. So what do we have? We have it's well, actually I used to think you could do it in either direction. You could spoke shave in either direction, but you can't on this one especially. The other one, it was fine. You could do it in either direction. It's very aromatic. It works very, very fast. So the wood comes off really quickly. It's easy to work that way. And finally, it's got gorgeous grain. So for a wood species that's almost there in every other department, with ash and hickory, actually better than ash on some of them, not quite as good as hickory in others, this is going to become quite a handle wood. So now what I have to do, now I have to source it. So I've got a guy looking for some hickory logs right now. I hopefully will make a trip to a mill in Quebec sometime in the next month to get another load of hickory logs. But I know there's lots of yellow birch here in the province. And up until November, I was working for a veneer factory, a veneer plant in Napadogan. So I know where there's really nice veneer. Birch veneer. So I've got a couple of guys that I know that harvest wood up in the Stanley area. I'm going to hit them up and get 3 or 4 nice yellow birch veneer logs and split them out and get them drying. So I'll have wood to supply more yellow birch. So Dan's going to be my guinea pig as far as how well they stand up. So the Charlotte County boys are going to, whoever's using these, whether it's Dan or someone else, will be able to tell me how they made out. So I just run my hand up. Usually that way you can feel any imperfections. It's pretty darn straight the whole way from top to bottom. So now the last thing I do is I put my rubber grommets in on the vise, tighten her back up, and I put it lengthwise. Okay, so I'll put it up and down. And I do it this way because the way I finish it, when I look at it now, I can see the whole way around the palm swell. So I can make sure it's nice and uniform around there. And then I can round it off here so it's rounded the same on both sides. So I just started doing this a few years ago. And I think it's made a big difference on the quality of my handles, because I used to look down them to make sure they were nice and straight, which this one's just as straight as a die. But I never looked along this edge to make sure it was uniform the whole way down. And actually, I pulled a handle out of an order about a year ago, because I looked at it and it was, I could see it wasn't finished really well on this side here. So I put it back in the vise and I started doing this. I smoothed it up so it's nice and straight and equally rounded on both sides, like that. And then I just, again, test it with my hand. Thumbs up. Now the other thing I can do, and especially with a diffuse porous wood that is really nice and smooth, I usually, what's Buck and Billy say? My handles are raw. And he's right. I'll finish them with my rasp, and that's usually fairly smooth for most people. And most guys like to tweak them a little bit. They may sand them when they get them. Some guys put BLO on them, boiled linseed oil. So, and again, the other thing is they have to fit the head on the top. So that means you have to actually rasp up around the neck of the handle again. So there's no need in me really finishing that, because you're going to do it anyhow when you get the handle. But the rest of the length, I will just run some sandpaper up and down just quickly. Hate to have somebody run their hand along it, seeing how nice it is when they haul it out of the box and get a splinter or something. So there, that one's done on that side. And then I'll finish this side here. I usually do it when it's in the vise. You might as well look me in the eye. So I'll just finish it like this. Just give it a quick once over. The other thing too, once you've sanded it a bit, both directions, your hands can really tell whether it's if there's any imperfections. So there. What a beautiful feeling handle. So again, it's diffuse porous, so that means it's not going to have those bubbles. You know, I call it like it's like an Oreo chocolate bar, but there's all those little holes, the vessels in the early wood, and that's what usually makes you feel the grains in those handles, hickory and ash and elm. But of course, in this yellow birch, there is none, because it's diffuse porous, so those vessels are just spread all throughout it, and there's not many of them. So there it is. You can see, let's check her for straightness. It is straight as a die. That way, that way. So nice handle, feels gorgeous in the hand. So that's it. Finishing a yellow birch axe handle here at East Coast Lumberjack. That's this end, nice and uniform, as you can see, grain running up and down. So, yeah, my new favorite wood. We'll put this up, and then the next video I want to do is one on which is stronger. Should you get a big rugged handle? Is bigger better in a handle? We're going to answer that question next time around. So, till next time, be sure you hit the subscribe button, and catch the next video that we put up. East Coast Lumberjack signing off.